welcome.
Welcome to the Elliot Wellbeing Butterfly Stories.
I'm Stephen.
And I'm Kelly.
So I suppose a good way to start this off, as it's episode 1, is tell everybody what it's about. Why are we here and why are we doing this?
You're really good at that.
Well, you can see the logo and everything's a butterfly, and this is called Butterfly Stories. What does a butterfly represent? It's all about rebirth and the caterpillar, just when he thought life was over and it was dull and it was gloomy, and it became a beautiful butterfly.
Yep. And it reminds me of that poem that I read at one of my yoga classes, and it was about I can't remember what it was called, but it was about people need to go through these transformations on their own, and if it happens too soon, you could cause more damage. And it's about allowing people to get through that. And sometimes when you're in that wee cocoon, it's like the winter of your life, and you think that it's always going to be like that, but it isn't. And you get through these processes, and it feels good again when you get the right support. And then sometimes you might go back in that wee cocoon, but it's not forever.
I think that's important to say. So although it's about transformation, that makes it sound as if it's a one-off event. Like there's this big epiphany that happens in life, and you go through something major, and then that's you. You're a new person. But that's not necessarily the case. Life's like up and down. If it went that way, you'd be dead. You'd flatlining. So you're going to have peaks and troughs, but it's getting to a place in life where you deal with the valleys in life with more strength and courage.
Aye, and that's definitely been the case for me, because I've done loads of things. Like, I'm 38 now, and I probably started...
Shut up, you. You told me you were 30.
I probably started, like, this journey, I'd say 24, so 14 years ago. But I remember having loads of times where I thought, oh, that's it, I've conquered it all. And then something else happens. So now I've realised that you're never always going to be like in that butterfly stage, the perfect like summer stage of your life. But when you do more and more, like going to different events and learning different things, it's like you can stop and say, right, what am I going to use so it doesn't go as bad as it has been in the past? And I can remember the first time I had that, like, what you would call it, did you say that a minute ago, an aha moment?
No, I didn't. But I wish I had. That's good.
But see that aha moment where it's just like something clicks and something changes for you, and you're just like, oh, I get it. I know what I've got to do. I remember the first time I had that, and I was 24, and I had my son when I was 21, and I loved being a mum, but I had bad postnatal depression after it. And for the first wee while I was okay, but then just like feeling overwhelmed and being a young mum and trying to keep a tidy house, trying to look after your baby, and no understanding enough what goes on in a woman's body or a woman's mind when they do have a baby. Like being young as well, not many of my pals had babies, so I was alone a lot and I felt really lonely. So it crept into really bad postnatal depression, which I kept to myself and never told anybody about. So people probably thought I was doing all right, maybe a bit grumpy or whatever. But I was just going on. And when I was alone during the week in the house myself, I was just miserable, like couldn't get off the couch at times and just crying all the time, struggling to keep up with housework and things. And then that lasted a few years for me. And I remember there was like 1 year that I had grew up getting taken to church and stuff, but I hadn't done all that for years. But I started praying again. And for a year, I was just like praying for help, asking for help. And then one day something just clicked, and I just thought, I want to be happy. And I just started doing things to make my life happier. I don't know what it was. It just felt like I felt that change in me, that aha moment. So, sorry, I'm lost in my train of thoughts. So from there, things just started changing for me because I made a decision that I was going to be happy. And I started volunteering with different groups. One of them was like a youth group for young people and children with additional support needs. and that was on weekly. And then the other one was a charity that took kids on holiday every year that had additional support needs. And we had to like do loads of fundraising during the year. And I think it was that giving to other people and like going and working with these young people and the kids and seeing how tough life was for them, where it started to make me just have so much gratitude for the life that I did have. And like just that giving, I think that's what the key to happiness is, like that I've learned throughout the years. It's giving to other people when you're not expecting anything back, but you actually get so much back. And then from that, it just changed loads of things for me. It was like I decided I had left school at 16. I was going to go to uni. I went to college first. I didn't believe in myself that I would be able to do any of that. I went on to become a teacher. I just started achieving things.
I think the two main messages in what you're saying, I heard you use the word change a lot in that. And with anybody, it's appropriate yesterday, what was World Mental Health Day. Mm-hmm. And the key for anybody, I suppose a hot term that everybody uses just now is healing journey. But I suppose to simplify that, it's just everybody wants to be happy, so everybody's route towards happiness. And you can add whatever tag or title you want to that, but everybody wants happiness. And the key to that is change. You need to change your thought patterns, your behaviours. Ask yourself key questions like, what am I eating? What am I drinking? What am I consuming in terms of watching on a TV, listening to, all these things. It's not easy transformation at times. It's not always these big events that come. And then the other thing for me is that you're saying is giving more than you receive. Mm-hmm. Again, that's the definition of kindness for me, is giving without the expectation of anything in return. Once you take that focus off yourself, because you get consumed in your own thoughts about all these wee problems in your life, but when you change that focus to somebody else and give, that just lifts everything for me.
Aye. And I think definitely, and one of the other things I think that help people is finding out the right information, because at that point when I wanted to get help, I didn't have a clue where to turn, and we didn't really use social media in the way we do now, so I didn't have access to that. I wasn't Googling things. It was like before we did that every day, but for me, one of the big parts has been learning and educating myself on why I was feeling the way I do. And I think like I realised when all that happened to me that it probably was stuff that had happened earlier on in my life, that I had been so busy in my life because I had left school. I started working in the hairdressers. It was like, I loved it, but I was just so busy, like making myself busy, that I wasn't actually coping with all the things that had happened before. But then when you have a baby and you stop, or similar, when people stopped for lockdown, it's like they couldn't make themselves busy and distract themselves. So all of these things that were already there started creeping up. And for me, it went right back to, I remember the first, like what I think is the thing that changed my kind of course of life was when I was 13 and my uncle had taken his own life. And now we hear about it all the time, and it did happen then, but I didn't even know it was a thing. I'd never heard about it. And for that to happen at age 13, which we know now from all the research we've done, age 13 is such like an important year for you. Like it's so many changes in your brain, and like when you're a toddler, your emotional brain is growing, but that kicks in again when you're a teenager. So it was really bad timing for me, and I did not speak to anyone. It was my mum's brother, so she was dealing with her own stuff. So me being me, I didn't even want to put that on her, but then I did in other ways because I just buried it down. I was so miserable myself, and that just showed up like in school. I was dogging school, I was out drinking, I was partying. Like, I just was not interested. And in school, I was getting into trouble all the time. And I just didn't care because I was absolutely depressed. And I tried to take my own life when I was 14 as well. And I don't know, I was just so miserable. And then when it came to leaving school, I left at 16 as soon as I could because I was just didn't want to be there. And I started working in the hairdressers, and I met this amazing person that changed it for me. And it was my friend who I still speak to now, Anne-Marie. And she, like, I had never met anybody like her. She was like, don't get involved in all the gossiping. Let's, like, try and think positive, and, like, showing me what vision boards were and about The Secret. And as much as it didn't just change me overnight, it was her impact on me that just totally inspired me, and that's always stayed with me through my life, and I still think about that now. So sometimes it's just a person that can come and totally change it for you, and I feel so grateful because I think lots of people go through it, but lots of people get stuck in this negative cycle, and it's maybe just been that they've not had the person or the moment that's changed it for them.
I think as well, taking you back to when you were 13 and that happened, that wouldn't have been as understood back then, and a lot of stigma.
No.
There's still stigma attached to it, although we've made huge progress. And as you say, that then you're where you were in that time in your life, you couldn't comprehend what had happened, then that manifests itself in different ways, behaviourally and stuff like that. And you look at that just now with kids, and it's still that way where kids, you know better than me, you're a teacher, that manifesting into kids' behaviour these days, or they're a nightmare, they're this, they're that. Did you have all that stuff? Just people putting labels and stuff on you?
Absolutely. And, like, in school, the scariest teachers would be, like, screaming at me and put me out the class, and I just didn't care. Like before, I would have been mortified to get into trouble, whereas I was just dead inside. So I was just like, you're not going to make me feel any worse than I already do. And I just think that's why I'm so passionate in teaching about, there's a saying that we always say, and it's behaviour's a form of communication, and it's absolutely true. Like, it's hard as well because when people are coming in and they're feeling low and then they're trying to deal with this behaviour, it can be tough. So, like, for being an adult or anybody that's in care of children, you need to make sure that your nervous system's okay so that you're not reacting. That like, loads of parents always ask me advice on that, and I'm saying you need to sort you first. And a lot of the times it is the environment, it's the adults' reactions. Kids don't know how to control these behaviours all the time, and they might have other stuff going on, but they need an adult that's going to come to them and be that calm and help them regulate, because kids are going to match where you are. So if you are, like, already dysregulated and the kid is, like, really annoyed, then if you come up here, they're going to stay up here or they're going to try and beat you. But if you manage to keep that calm, which a lot of people think that you're just being too soft, when it's not, it's you understanding that if I, like, be that safe space and if I feel calm, they're going to gradually come down and they're going to trust you as well, because you matching them, like fighting fire with fire, that's going to make them distrust you and feel scared. And they might not say, oh, I'm scared, but their way of feeling scared might be to shout louder, to slam a door, whatever. So it's being able to look after yourself first so you can be that place of calm for them.
It's the same, not just with kids, but with adults as well. Like when you trigger each other and you react and stuff like that. It's recognising that. That was an interesting thing. We did a course, and it was part of it was looking at triggers and stuff like that, and mentally rehearsing your triggers, like recognising where your triggers are, what's causing them, what's exactly, and then recognising that might bring that up. So how am I going to choose to react in that situation? That's key, because if you're still getting triggered by the same thing over and over and over, then you're just as much of the problem as the person. And well,
it's probably not the thing that's happening right now that's the cause. Like, so for me, that's why I had to look back and see why I was behaving the way I was, or why I was so affected when I had a baby, because I love being a mum. Like, and unless you've had it, you probably wouldn't understand, but it's quite difficult because you love this wee baby so much. And for me, as soon as I had my wee baby when I was 21, I just thought, this is what I'm meant to do in my life. I just love being a mum. That's what I'm here for. But at the same time, you were so happy with this beautiful wee baby, but you just didn't feel happy in you. And if like nothing outside of you is going to make you happy, if you're not happy, a baby's not going to change that.
How did that feel for you as a mum? I just had this baby and you're unhappy inside.
I know.
How did that feel?
I don't know. You just feel so torn because you just want to be the best mum that you can be. But like, you feel a bit guilty because you've got everything that you want, but you just still don't feel happy. And
I ask that question as a man, and you might get men asking those things like, "How you not happy? What's up with you? What's wrong?" Again, it's just West of Scotland culture. Sometimes is that lack of understanding. It's about expanding that understanding. So that's when you'd met Anne Marie, and then 21 you had Aidan. What about your journey from there?
So, like, as I said, after that, I still had so many good times as well, but underneath that's like what was happening for me. And then it all started to change by doing this voluntary work. I actually went to college to be a classroom assistant. I did that course. And when I was on placement, again, one of the teachers said to me, "You should go on to do teaching." And I had left school when I was 16, as I said. I thought I was stupid. I hadn't done my hires. I didn't have all these exam results to take me somewhere. And I had just labelled myself as being stupid. So I was like, "Oh, I can't do teaching." And she was like, "You'd be great at it." So I went back to college and did my hires, passed them and got into uni. And I was also like achieving so much. I was doing all these fundraisers, raising all this money. I was doing a bungee jump, which was horrific. I was just like pushing myself to do all these challenges, doing Tough Mudder, like running races and going to the gym. But at the same time, there was still these patterns showing up in my life, like being in relationships that were just completely wrong for me. And like I could go on and say how bad they were, and it was horrific, but I was in a place where my energy was still low and my self-esteem was still low, that I was willing to accept that. One of them was like really abusive, like physically, mentally, emotionally, and I just couldn't see it. And I think I've got a real soft spot and want to help people. So for me, I kept getting dragged into it because they would do really bad things to me and then they would give me a sob story of why it happened. And because I knew how much I struggled, I would be like feeling sorry for them and then going back there. And even though I didn't even like them, but I just kept doing it because I felt sorry for them. And then that ended, and then I ended up having like a really big trauma, and I was actually sexually assaulted, and it was somebody in my family. So that was just like the most horrific thing as well. So I don't really know what else to say about that. I don't want to go into the details of it. There's no need, but it's more about how I felt when that happened. And I think it was like a double trauma because there's the act in itself, which was horrendous for any woman. And then there's the like kind of snowball of how it affected me because it was within the family. And I think nobody knows until it happens to them, like how they will react in a situation. And for me, I had to go and do a lot of learning on that to kind of understand why I reacted the way I did, why they behaved the way they did, and have a kind of understanding for it to settle in my head. But like, I think people will watch films and programmes and see it on EastEnders. Not that I would watch EastEnders, but I know a lot of people do. And they see and they think, well, that wouldn't happen to me because I would just do this to them or I would have punched them in the face. But when you understand the brain and you understand that fight or flight, you you're not thinking, like you're not able to rationally think. Your body goes into like protection. So I can't remember now off my head like what part of your brain kicks in, but you're in fight or flight. So you're in fight, flight or freeze. So you're either going to run, you're either going to fight them, or you're going to freeze. And you don't have a choice in that. Like you can't rationally, like it's all right to look back in hindsight and say this is what I would have done or should have done, but you don't have in that moment when your body's trying to protect you from it.
I don't think there's anything that can prepare anybody for that type of thing. So people can theorise on it all they want and say this is what I would do or that's what I would do. But it's horrific. Obviously we've spoke about it before. And I think like what you've said before is that as you see that double whammy almost where your whole life's torn apart where it's family. And you've got that almost that trust that you've put in this
people
unit.
You've known all your life and loved and thought they would protect you, and then when it happens, and like before that they used to be like so proud because I went to uni and stuff, and then that happens and they're like, no, that's not true. And that's the people that you've known all your life and loved so much. How do you
even pick yourself up and move on from something like that?
Well, firstly, I did a lot of partying. that like I just spent, and then I ended up in another relationship, and that was just based around partying, and it was just convenient for that because I just spent any time like I didn't have Aidan and he was at his dad's. I would just be drunk. I would just be up all night. I would be like shutting the blinds so that the daylight didn't go in so we could continue partying. It would go on all weekend. That was my coping mechanism. I was in my second year at uni, so they were really good, but I took time out and I just restarted second year the following year. So I just partied and partied.
Again, people might think that sounds tremendous, you know, you just get this party lifestyle, but like we don't drink at all anymore, and it's not through anything like we had an issue with anything like that, because it shuts down so much of your life.
I know.
It shuts down so much of the joy in life, I think.
And I was using it as a coping mechanism. And I don't need that anymore. So
yeah. So you've come through that.
Well, I partied, and then I had like the court case and stuff. I had to go to actually 2 within like 2 months. The first one was that other relationship I'd been in, and it was like, it happened loads of times, but it was a taxi driver that witnessed it, so that's how it ended up going to court. And then I had that court case. But what I'm really lucky is, I speak about Anne-Marie, but I've got loads of women in my life, and I hate when I hear women say, oh, I don't like groups of women. Women are bitches. Women are not nice to each other, because I don't see that. And I'm the sort of woman that loves other women. I love to see them doing well. I love successful women. And like, I don't just mean money-wise or career, just being happy in themselves. Like, I love women that, like, I love to cheer on other women. I love when they look beautiful. I would always be like, oh, you look really nice. I don't feel like we need to be threatened by each other. And I've got a group of there's 15 years in my group of pals. And then I've got 2 sisters, my mum, that are really strong women as well. And I've got other individual pals. So I've been really lucky when all that was happening. Like, my pals, it was my 30th and they just took me away for the weekend, had planned all this lovely stuff and surprised me. So I've got that as well. I'm really lucky, I've got some guy pals as well. Because I remember one of them, he says, I don't know how you can trust guys after that. And I'm like, because I've got ones in my life, now you as well, but at the time we didn't know each other yet. But I'm thinking about Sean, and I see how good they are, and my pals' husbands as well. So that gave me the trust that there was still good people out there. Because sometimes when somebody has something bad happen to them, they just see the world through that lens. Whereas, and then I think still going, working with the charities as well, I just could see that there still is lots of good out there. So I think that was a big help as well.
It's easy to focus in on that negative. I mean, I talk a lot about that in the workshops that I do, is like where focus goes, where your attention goes, that's where energy goes. So if you've got that focus on everybody's an arsehole, basically, all guys are just arses, then you're going to see that. But fortunately you had those supportive guys. Sean's a great guy. The two Sean Squared, and your friend group. Wow, I remember when I first met you. I'll be honest, I was a wee bit feared of them, but that's because they've all got big, massive personalities, but they're lovely people and they're strong women. And
also different. Like no two of us are the same. We're all into different things as well.
Even Marie and Megan, give them a wee name drop. Sisters, but they couldn't be any more different in terms of personality. You're both lovely, by the way, in case you're watching this. But it's such a great network to have around you, and I'm glad they were round about you to help you through that.
And I think that's really important, is having a community, and like my immediate family as well. Although I'd lost like the extended one, my immediate family, having them as well. So I was really lucky. But then I think like I still had that in my head from when I was 24, that kind of epiphany or something.
You want to be happy?
I just knew, like, I just thought, and also over the years I have lost people in my life, like since my uncle, but other people to suicide and other people that have passed away through drug-related illnesses. So I think I just did this, like, I kind of had a wee bit of a fear of death, but also thinking life is so short and so vulnerable that I don't want to spend my life feeling miserable. And even if I get there, I'm not going to spend long there, because there is things, and I felt that happiness again after, like, feeling really down with the postnatal depression. So I knew that you could go through, and I know, like, if you're feeling like that as a teenager, and like that was the first time I'd experienced it, so I tried to take my own life, but then I got better and I felt good again when I started working and stuff. So I knew that, like, if that had happened, I would have never knew that you could come through the other side, whereas I had been through it once, like feeling that low. And it doesn't matter what it is that's happened to you. It's just we're still feeling the same emotions. So you might look at something and think, but that's not that big a deal. Nothing's physically happened. Like the postnatal depression, I've never had something like a situation, but you still felt that low. So it's just the same as like when it happened with the assault. It takes you down to the same level of energy. And I just know that because I've been through that now with different things, that you can get to the other side, even though at the time it does not feel like it's ever going to end. But then from there, I just started, I went to like a life coach seminar, and that just completely changed things for me, because it was going back to that kind of thinking that Anne-Marie had taught me about. And like I had read The Secret and watched the video, but then I was like, that way you think, right, I'm going to do this board, but you don't just think happy thoughts and think about stuff you want and that happens. So then when I went to like the life coaching seminar, it was about doing the work on you, which was a total new concept, all this kind of self-help, but I didn't really know about it. So I went to a few, and then I did a 5-day one, which I met like the most wonderful pal on, Debbie Ann. We had just such a fun week, me and her. We just laughed all week, and both of us really helped each other. But then that clicked in me, and I just wanted to start doing the work on myself. And I thought, right, I need to make the changes. I can't just go about saying they were a dick, they done that or whatever, and blaming people for how I was feeling, because I don't know their story either, but I'm not putting anything down, but it's just about saying, well, why was I like at that relationship? Why was I in a place where I was willing to keep taking that on? Why was I, where was I? Like, my self-esteem must be really low for me to accept that somebody treated me that bad.
So was that the I suppose the progression through the kind of partying stage, and when you went to the life coach?
I was still partying at the time, but then I started going to wee things.
So is it that going to these things that made you sit and question the lifestyle you were leading? You again, the word you mentioned again was change. That made you look at the way you were living life at that moment, think, right, okay, this needs to change in order for me to move on. Was that point there?
Yeah, I just thought I can't, like that video you did the other day, it's like you kind of keep doing the same thing, expect different results. So I just knew that I had to make some changes. So I ended up after that, and then I found out about like Tony Robbins and stuff, and I know he's a bit Marmite for people, but for me, I just loved it. I watched his videos, read his book, listened to him all the time. I was just constantly a bit obsessed with it. Went to see him. I went with Anne-Marie actually, which is quite full circle. Anne-Marie had a big life-changing time. I will not talk about that because that's her story. But and we went with Sarah as well. It was really good. The 3 years just come back like new people. And I was just like, right, I was just so into it. I did the fire walk and I was just up here buzzing. It was like being on such a high. And you just thought, I'm going to feel like this forever. Like every day is going to be like this. So I then decided I was just going to be on my own until I could build myself up. And if I met somebody, they would need to be really special to be able to take that away from me. And before, I hated having been single, or because I hated sitting myself. That's when all the feelings of loneliness and feeling not good enough, you can't distract yourself as much. All of these things started to creep in. Whereas I went through this wee period where, it was like a process. It was quite painful at the start, but I just started to feel better, and I was just getting out all the time, like outdoors. And I worked in like an outdoor after school club, and I had the kids down the woods, and that just totally grew my love of being outside and playing in the woods and getting mucky and doing all the things that kids love to do. But I was doing it as an adult and loving it, and I think that all helped me too. And then I went back and I did another vision board, which I realised though, before I just thought these things were like, oh, you just put these pictures on and you just think about it all the time and things come into your life, where it's realising it's not. It's like, for me, it's about saying, this is the direction I want to go and this is where I want to focus, but what do I need to do to myself to get myself there, or who do I need to be? And like one of the things that Tony Robbins had spoke about, so as much as I've seen I wanted to be on my own, I didn't mean forever, just wanted a bit of time. But I wanted to meet somebody, and I thought about all the things that I wanted in this person. So I wrote them all down. But then I looked at the list, and Tony Robbins says, who do you need to be to get that person? If you want to meet somebody who loves spending time outdoors as well, you're going to get that if you're spending every weekend in a house party, never seeing the light of day. So I had to bring all that in. So I had all these things, and I'm like, I want them to be able to cook. I want them to be able to look after themselves. I don't want to be somebody's mum. I don't want to be doing all this stuff, running about like I was working as a teacher. So I'm like, I'm not working full time and then coming home to look after somebody else and pick up after them. And I wanted them to be my best pal and stuff like that. So I had all that, and I was just in such a good place, and I just got my energy really good, and I was doing loads of different wee things, dipping in and out, going to Reiki things and wee talks and different events. And then one week I was supposed to go to a wedding, but my son had been away to Kobawe all week, so I was like, I don't want to go out because he's been away. And then he was home an hour and he's like, I'm away to bed. Don't think he'd slept all week. So then I ended up myself down the stairs, and I just happened to send a wee friend request on Facebook.
How did this vision board work out for you? Who is this mystery man?
And here we are. It's so
and I can cook.
I know, can cook, can met all the things on my list.
I don't know about looking after myself.
You do loads.
But I can definitely cook.
So it, like, honestly, it seems like such a cliche Disney story, but it was just totally all the things that I'd wanted, and we met, and we just, within minutes, like, we just wouldn't shut. Well, at first I wouldn't talk because I was like this, looking away, nervous. But from then, the next day, I just was saying to my friends, I'm going to marry him. 8 months later, we were engaged. 2 years later, married, and now we've got our own wee baby together and a beautiful wee family.
A wee mystery drive out one day and went to the bar at show home and put a deposit down I didn't expect. But
but at the same time, as much as it's turned out like amazing for us and we've met each other, and we've got all the things that we wanted, there's still been, like, for us in our life, loads of things that we've had thrown at us along the way.
We've been through some of the most challenging times that would have absolutely smashed other couples apart.
Which we wouldn't go into now because it's, like, not between us, but against us, but it's not for us to...
No, definitely not. Definitely not. But even things like death, like, we lost my grandpa during COVID. That just
we just were moving into your house that week.
Aye, things like that. The whole, surrounding that, the events surrounding that kind of stuff. There's loads of things that have came our way. And I think that's the message, like we were saying at the start. It's like up and down, you're going to have all these things, but it's building that mental toughness and working on yourself. This is a daily thing. That's what people need to realise. You don't go to the gym one day and look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Maybe no Arnold Schwarzenegger now, but back in his heyday, Mr. Universe. That it's constantly going in and working that muscle. It's the same with your mind. You need to work at it because you're surrounded by negativity in the world these days. No matter where you look, you're surrounded by it.
And like, it's helped us and it's made us really strong and it's made us address things. I mean, I still think there's stuff that will trigger me or stuff I've not dealt with, and you never, unless you're enlightened, you've never got to the end of that journey. But it gets so much easier because now I've got all these tools that I can use, and I feel like something happens and then I just think, right, how am I going to get through this? And then for me, it's been giving up the control of trying to fix everything all the time and just saying, what can I do to make myself feel better, bring me back down to a place of calm, and then trusting that things will work out. And they don't always work out in the way that you think you want them to, but then sometimes it's for the best. I just think of that, it was Stuart that told us about it, but it was in the last episode of Bluey, the story, the Buddhist story, and it's he called it Maybe. But in Bluey, it's I can't remember what they called it. It was a bit different. It's like, I don't know. It doesn't matter. If you watch Bluey, you'll know what I'm talking about. But it's the farmer who can you remember how it starts?
I think he breaks his leg.
No, it's his son.
His son.
And the neighbours come and his son's broke his leg and they're like, oh, what a big tragedy. And he's like, maybe. And then the next day the army come round and they're taking all the young men and they don't take him because he's broke his leg. And they're like, oh, what good luck. And he's like, maybe. And then the horse like runs away and they're like, oh, what bad luck, you've lost your horse. And he's like, maybe. And then the next day the horse comes back with another 2 horses following it and they're like, what good luck. And he's like, maybe. And it's like, we don't know the outcome. And Wayne Dyer talks about that, when you try and fixate on what you want the outcome to be, it's going to cause you problems because you can't control everything. So it's just about, like, I don't know, just trying to live in the best way you can and no worrying so much about what the outcome is going to be, all these things.
Wayne Dyer also talks about, I love how he talks about soulmates.
Aye.
Like he'll talk about soulmates that say, and it's, again, it might sound cheesy and cliched, but he talks about it the opposite way that a lot of people talk about it. Like, oh, you like vanilla ice cream? Vanilla ice cream's my favourite. Oh, and I like bluey as well. That's a bad example, but things like that. Like
Especially on a date, you're an adult.
I know. Is that everything needs to be the same and matching? But for me, a soulmate, and this is something, like, I've grown so much as an individual, as a person, since you've come into my life. It's the person that pushes you to be the absolute best version of yourself. They challenge you in certain ways, and sometimes it might be uncomfortable. Sometimes it might be uncomfortable. Sometimes
you need to call you a bit of a dick. No, but sometimes you need to hear the truth. Do you know what I mean? Like, if everything's just all like nice, and obviously you could say it in a nice way, but if you just hear you're great, then you're never going to grow as a person. If you think you're already the be all and end all, because nobody has finished their like journey at all. And one of the big things I've had recently that's transformed me, apart from becoming a mum again, so we've now got 4 together between us, and it's just been so amazing. I'm getting to really enjoy every bit, and I'm not having to like feel the love but then feel the guilt. So that's been lovely. But also for myself, I did my yoga training, which just so I started off doing kids yoga, so I could use in school, because I noticed that all the kids loved it. I loved yoga. I was going to classes, was going to your friend Stephen's classes a lot, and I loved it. So the kids were all doing it in school, but they were watching it on the smartboard, and it was brilliant. Cosmic yoga, she's amazing. The stories, I love it, but I just feel like they get far too much like technology all the time, which it's about balance. I love that we've got technology, it's so useful, but kids being stuck to the screen all the time is no good either. So I was thinking, right, I'm going to go and do a kids yoga course. I looked it up. Well, you actually, I thought about it and hummed and hawed, and then you ended up booking it for me as a surprise, forcing me to go, which I love, because that's like, if I was doing it for somebody else, I'd be like, that, go and book it. Do it.
But I've got the same thing.
Aye.
And you
do the same. I know. So sometimes you just need that, because when it's for you, you're a bit like, oh, but the money, the time,
But I think that's interesting, because that plays into, again, those patterns that have been instilled in us probably from a young age, where it's talking about, money and better the devil you know, and all, a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush, all these wee sayings about safety, and just kind of no beat into you, but from a young age it's instilled within you. That's a better word.
But I think when you so for me, one of the things that's always helped me is trying to understand why people behave the way they do. And when I was younger, I would argue with mum and dad a lot, and I would be angry at them for things, and a lot of teenagers are. But when I started doing all this stuff and I started to understand them, and took a wee step back and stopped making it just about me being a victim of things, you'd realise why people behave the way they do. And the money thing, when you think about it, so for our parents, what their parents would have went through, the rationing, the wars, they would have had nothing. So they would have had that mindset where you can't throw anything out. Or my mum grew up in a massive family, so they couldn't waste loads of food. So it was you need to make use of things again. And when you've grew up in that, it's hard to undo that. So then you just continue it. It's like that story. Remember the one where someone was cooking, was it a leg of lamb, and they chopped off the top and they put it in the oven, and somebody said to them, why do you do that? And they said, because my mum taught me to cook, and that's how she taught me how to do it. So they go to the mum and they said, why do you do that? Why did you do that? And she said, because my mum taught me to cook, and that's what she did. So they went to the gran, and they said, why did you do that? And they said, because I only had a wee baking tray. and I had to cut it off to fit it in. But they just still kept doing it because it was all they knew and they never questioned it. So for the money thing, that like definitely does come into it. What was my point in that? Oh, so the yoga, the kids yoga. So you booked it for me. And I was doing it in school and I loved it. I did the Rainbow Kids Yoga and it was just so much fun, so much connection. But you didn't need to do your adult yoga, like your 200 hours to have done that. But then I just wanted to start working with families. I want to help families connect, and I just think it's just such an amazing and beautiful way. I did it in here actually, the family yoga with the G4 staff, and we had Nicole and Laura and the other girls and their kids, and Nicole's girls and Laura's son just love like doing the yoga, so they all joined in, and it's just so nice to see mums and dads and grands having fun, connecting, and like all through yoga, but it's done in a fun way, like playing games. So from like doing the kids yoga, I thought, right, I want to do my 200 hours so that I can work with the adults as well. And I just wanted to start exploring it more. And I actually did my training in here as well, which was nice to come back.
G4
here.
claims?
G4 claims. I don't even know the wee jingle off my head now. I was going to sing it. Sorry, Nicole. So I did my yoga teacher training with Soulful Sunday and I just loved it. Natalie and Kat were just amazing. We had a big group of girls and every week we just had such a laugh. Like I did not expect to be going on a yoga course and laughing my head off every week. It's probably partly because of half of the dirty jokes that we kept telling. But it was just so much fun. But I didn't know that it was going to have such a big impact in me, because when people think of yoga, they think of doing all these like poses and stuff and need to be dead flexible, but that's just one part of it. There's like 8 limbs of yoga, and part of them is looking within yourself, looking at your behaviours, how you're treating others, like how that's impacting you. And they say like the way you behave on the mat is the way you behave off the mat. So it's like a reflection. So it's hard not to change when you are going, and even when you're on that mat and you start to feel your body. I had said a wee video about it the other day, and when you start to feel like you've got things wrong with you, like sore pains somewhere or sore stomachs, it's often trapped emotions. It's often like stress and trauma. Always, not all the time, obviously, because there is other medical things that can happen, but stress and the cortisol like running through your body at high levels is having an impact on your body. So when you go onto that mat and you start to notice like wee pains or things you probably just never have taken the time to stop and feel, whereas you've not got a choice when you're there. And then when you start doing all the reading about like just having a good way of life, and that's, I think, something that was missing for me, because although I had done that year of praying and then I had started getting back to church and stuff for a while, after that assault, I just totally fell away from it. So I was like missing a bit of spirituality, and I think yoga brought that back for me, because for me, there's so many different religions, and I think it's the problem I had with it is the people coming in and making all these rules that was nothing to do with the message was. And when you start to look at them, they're all teaching the same thing. They're all teaching about love, teaching about forgiveness, teaching about like just how to live our life. And forgiveness, that's been a big thing for me as well, because it's like that saying, you being angry at someone else is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. For me, forgiveness doesn't mean that you're going to go and be their pal again and hang about with them, but it's letting go, understanding that you don't know what's going on in their life or what's happening for them to get to that low energy that they could behave in that way. But it's just letting that go and letting go of the need for somebody to be like for you to have a control in how they are punished, because I think like karma will happen. It's not like the way that most people explain karma, but you can't go about doing bad things and expect to feel happy and live a good life. Like, if you are causing people unhappiness and you're judging people for things, as soon as you do it, you're going to make yourself feel miserable.
I think the way to describe that is your subconscious mind knows that you're living in a contradiction. So if you're going on about, even if you're talking to your kids, for example, say you need to treat people kindly, don't talk about them, don't bully. There's a great example with the schools went back. I saw this viral post going about teaching kids the importance of not being a bully. But if you're then living your life in contradiction to the message you're giving your kids, you're gossiping about people, you're bitching about all these people, you're calling people names, that sets an example to your kid, but also to your subconscious mind, and it knows that it's in contradiction to this message that you're giving, and it leads to depression, it leads to anxiety, those low vibrational energies. So people, that's a big takeaway for people there is, are you living in contradiction to the messages that you're giving out there? Again, World Mental Health Day yesterday. Hashtag kindness. Hashtag be good.
David Hamilton though as well, like, he's all about kindness, and the story that he was telling us was about one day he was in a rush and he was taking his dad to the hospital, and his dad was really ill and he pulled out at a junction, and somebody nearly went into him and they both broke, and the guy just was like, and I cried when he told us that the guy just put his hand up as if it's okay, whereas somebody else might have reacted like, see you, blah, blah, blah. And he just burst into tears because that guy gave him such a kind response and was like, it's all right, we're fine. And he's like, what he was going through at the time, if somebody had reacted in the other way, he didn't know if he could have handled any more pain at that time. So it's like, you don't know what people are going through. But also when I think about the bullying part, it's like adults saying to kids not to do it, and I'm like, you need to be the role model for that.
Yeah, that's
or
what
how
I mean.
You're treating the kids as well. It's like, we can't expect kids to learn how to like communicate in a calm way by shouting at them. And I'm not saying that I've not shouted, or that if probably there might be a time, but if you're just shouting all the time because you're so overwhelmed and you've not dealt with your own stuff, then that just becomes the way of it. But if you do it one off, like, and it's like so rare because they've realised, oh wow, I really crossed a line there, like they don't ever do that, that's the difference, you know what I mean? But if it's happening all the time, then you need to look at yourself. But also, if you want your kids to speak kindly to you, to feel like calm, they might not do it the first time, the second time. It might take them 100 times to try to communicate that. But if you are consistent with how you are, then it will pay off. So it did. It just totally changed me as a person, which I just love. And that's why we are so passionate, because like next time you're going to tell your story, but why we got on so well is because we both are so like passionate about all this well-being, trying to make somebody feel better. And for me, I just feel like I'd never ever tell my story unless I think it's going to help someone. So I wouldn't just publicly, I probably did when I was partying and still try to deal with it, but now it wouldn't come up in conversation. Like, I wouldn't be trying to just bring it up or whatever. But if somebody was talking to me about something and I thought it was going to help, then I would mention things. But I was reading a book recently, because I love to read all the time. I just love to learn about all this. And it was talking about, remember the one you ordered, the wrong one? It was... Yes,
Letting Go.
Yeah, so it was Let It Go.
Aye.
And one of the cases, it was really good as well. One of the cases it spoke about was a seminar he was doing. This guy's a life coach like you that wrote the book. And I just love like coaching. I think people don't completely understand what it's about, and they think it's just like airy-fairy or whatever. Again,
you mentioned with Tony Robbins, it's Marmite. But I think because people have got preconceived ideas of what it is.
I don't know, and it's helped me massively. And I've done like counselling and everything you can think of, and I just love life coaching. Our friend Stuart as well is a life coach. It's really helped both of us, and Lauren's. But this guy wrote this book, and one of the scenarios he was talking about was a seminar he was doing, and this woman wanted to speak to him because she was feeling quite annoyed about something he'd said the day before. So anyway, I can't remember the full ins and outs of the story, but it turned out 20 years before she had been assaulted and she had never spoke about it or never dealt with it. And that really hit something for me, because I thought, I'm really lucky that I've went through that, and all these things have happened to help me process it. Whereas there is still so many people, and it's like people feel ashamed to talk about it. They feel like people aren't going to believe them, and I totally get that. Like, I felt that myself. Like, or you tell somebody and then you think, why did I say that? Because now you're worrying that they've not believed you. But I just found it really sad that somebody could hold that for 20 years and what it would do to their life and
what it would do to their body. And that, again, as you said earlier, the body keeps a score. That shows up in so many different ways. It's stress sitting in the body.
I know. And why should we feel ashamed to be able to talk about it? And unless people do, then, like, for me, it might help somebody.
Aye. You've questioned it, like, again, with us starting the podcast and stuff like that. You thought, you're reading June Moore's book at the time, and you think, who's going to want to hear my story? But you're such a powerful, inspiring woman. I'm not saying that because you're my wife, and you're going to burn my bagel if you don't. But
that was I did this
you
morning.
did burn my bagel this morning. My subconscious mind plucked that right out there. No, but you're such a bold, inspiring woman, and it's the story you've got is one of inspiration, because you could have just went that downward spiral and stayed there, but you haven't, and you're out there inspiring other women as well, other people, not just women. I was going to say as well, you spoke about the two forms of yoga, obviously the rainbow yoga and the traditional kind of hatha yoga you did. I love what you've done. You've smashed the both of them together.
I love doing that. So I've done it a lot with like different events with adults only, but doing part of the kids yoga, or you can kind of mix it up and have it traditional, but bringing people together, like having fun, connecting with their inner child, because I think that's what we all need to do. I think we need to go back to that child, and we need to heal that wee child and think about them. And I think that's, like, for me, what always drives me with my teaching, with my parenting now, with, like, when I look at other people who are maybe like addicted to substances, and I hate that J word, I'm not even going to say it, when they're talking about people that are addicted to drugs, and I just see them in so much pain. I feel like, the one person I didn't mention, which I would love to, was Tina Hendry. What do I say Tina?
Well, Tina, she led a campaign. What was the name of the campaign?
It's ACEs.
ACEs. Adverse Childhood Experiences. So I think there's 12 different ACEs. 10 different ACEs you can possibly have. Some people have one, some people have all 10. And it's just these adverse childhood experiences and how they impact your route through life and the impact it may have on you. Tina kind of spearheaded that. She was a police officer to begin with, so she was exposed to all this and had a desire to understand human behaviour.
Like things that I don't want to say in case that's not public knowledge, but I know Tina did speak about it. It was like experiences within her family and children, and they'd been through so much trauma, and they were going to CAMS and things, and they were like, you need to do these challenging behaviour courses. And she's like, I'm a police officer in East End of Glasgow. I don't need to learn about how to deal with challenging behaviour. I know. She says there's more. So Tina had remembered this doctor that came over from America, Vincent Felitti, and he spoke about this ACEs and how it impacts. He was talking about your health, but it impacts just like mental health and it impacts children. And Tina worked with Suzanne Zedek, and they did a tour like showing this resilience film. And for me, I volunteered with Tina, and that's how I know Stuart as well. He did too. And we would go into prisons, we'd go into community centres, we'd talk to health, we'd talk to education. And I just was in awe because Tina just wanted to help everyone. And she then did her own social enterprise business, and it was called Reattached Parenting, and she worked with kinship carers, and it was giving them this support. And then, like, if a family went to Tina, she would just be like, here's my number, I'll help you. And she did all that off her own back, and then she used the business, like working with the schools and stuff. But she just was such a giving person, and sadly she passed away from breast cancer.
How long ago was that?
That was just before lockdown. So after that happened, me and some of the volunteers were like, right, we need to continue doing something, but we never did, and it was lockdown, and then we were going through a lot of stuff ourselves. And then I had a moment recently, and I thought, I'm not Tina. Tina was really good at standing up and talking and telling all the facts and and I can't remember like statistics. I can't remember the names of all these medical things. That's not something that I'm good at. But what I am good at, and what I felt like what was needed was, right, we know this stuff, so what do we do next? And I think that's what we're trying to do with our Elliot wellbeing.
The thing that you've mentioned here is the inner child thing. So that is so important in terms of what we're doing and the work that you do. Again, I just love watching you work in we did a joint workshop recently, and it's just, I did the heavy session, had them all greeting, and then you pulled them through the other end. But it's tapping into that side. And
like when people always ask me about help for their kids, and I'm like, see, if you helped yourself, that would be the best help for them, because if you're in this good place, and I just always think about what I would have needed, if you're in this good place, then you will have the answers. You'll know instinctively how to help those kids. So I love like giving people advice on what to do with their kids and things like that. But I love helping the adults as well. And that's what we're trying to achieve through this. It's like taking people back to that childhood, getting them to start to think, when did I stop feeling good? It might not have been childhood, it's not always, but I would say a lot of the times, if you've not had the chance to build resilience and emotional intelligence, or if you've had a big trauma, then it makes it difficult when you become an adult.
If you've not been loved as well.
I know.
The connection side of things.
Or for some people, it's like, not that the parents didn't love them, but they were just so overwhelmed that they weren't able to give them what they needed at that time, because they had so much, through not their own fault, it's so much going on with themselves.
Can we do a shameless plug?
Yes.
We're right at time just now, so we've got a retreat on the 11th of January.
Yes.
So we need to mention that.
Yeah.
Elliot Wellbeing, 2 L's and 2 T's in Elliot.com.
So we're going to be doing things together. I'm going to be doing some of the inner child yoga. You're going to be doing some movement, using music. We've got Gina McKee and Colin coming to speak as well. Lots of wee surprises, but it's going to be a lot of fun. It's
absolutely stacked. It's going to be amazing. So Butterfly Stories, it's all about stories
of transformation for inspiration.
And this has been Kelly's story of transformation.
Thank you.